Okay, so for today's video, we are going to be talking about kind of another Deep Notes app video, but it's about perspective and gaining perspective through solitude, but also differentiating it from delusion, because I think people don't spend enough time just thinking nowadays and processing, but they spend too much time alone, which can lead to delusion, and people get those two mixed up. So pretty much solitude can sharpen your thinking. That's a big one. And like when you step away from the screens and the constant simulation, you kind of move into more deeper reflective processing modes, and those slowly generate thoughts that are form into perspectives. Um, Solitude just kind of gives you more bandwidth to notice your emotions and like space for philosophical thoughts, and kind of just like connecting the dots that you wouldn't realize if you didn't. But solitude also removes feedback loops, which means it can develop into delusion where there's no other humans around saying, oh, that assumption isn't true, or here's a different angle, or no, that person wasn't mad at you, they're just tired. So your brain will fill in the missing gaps of information, and that can be wrong. And if those guesses don't get challenged, they can turn to beliefs. This is why influencers and isolated creators and things like that, without enough peer-to-peer interaction, can really influence people who watch their content the wrong way, and especially if the people who watching their content are also alone. So kind of like, what's the line between contemplation and delusion? Contemplation expands possibilities, leaves room for adjustment, doesn't stop you from seeing the other person's perspectives, and it can be updated, and it'll feel grounded even if it's deep. But when it comes to delusion, it's more narrow and rigid conclusions, feels urgent and kind of very emotional about it, makes you withdraw from people, and feels like kind of this must be the truth. Then there's like kind of just like it forms where there's no outside input. That's why hanging out with people is important, but also solitude is important as well. A practical check could be, does this thought expand or constrain me? When you're trying to figure out if it's a delusion or a perspective, like a deep thought, would I be open to someone disagreeing with this? Does this thought make me more or less connected to the world? It is an issue with some parts of this, because when you get to a certain level of deep thoughts, you start realizing a lot of issues with the world and society today. Some very Ted Kaczynski kind of stuff. But I honestly would suggest just to differ away from those, because that can make you cut off from other people and not as fun to hang around with, and they don't really help you at all. So I would stay away from those. And then how to keep contemplation healthy: just keep hanging out with other people, run your thoughts by some of your friends, make sure you're very reflective and evaluating your own thoughts and stuff like that. But it's very important to have solitude in this day and age and process stuff, because as I said in one of the videos talking about influencer content, and that is very saturated with people giving their own advice that they would have given themselves, when that really doesn't apply to all the people watching. And that makes makes it so kind of you develop those problems when that they're giving you the advice to in order to solve them, and it's very counterproductive. So when you're trying to be productive watching all this content, it's counterproductive. And this also applies to this, because instead of finding a way to stimulate your brain and work on yourself watching these YouTubers, if you go into a state of contemplation, and it could take longer for you to get into that state and more of a detox, because the thing mainly blocking you from that state is stress from scrolling, stress from all the things you're seeing. Your body is very high, like very high strung, and it feels like it doesn't know where all this emotion and stuff is coming from, because you're not processing, you're just consuming. And when that happens, you feel very stressed, and your body puts you on high alert, which it puts up a lot of defenses, and you can't relax and contemplate like that. So find a relaxing place. For me, it's a spa where I just lay back and or laying on the beach, or sometimes in my bed when I'm going to sleep. And those, you just need to find a space where you can do that. And maybe bring a notebook. Try not to bring your phone, because that can trigger you and distract you. Yeah. But that's just a big one to think about, is we 100% need contemplation, need to think of those deeper thoughts, and that will take us towards success, because to get success, we have to understand ourselves, and to understand ourselves, we have to process our thoughts and go deeper and see. We can't just scratch the surface level, and we gotta stop the stimulation, and that is kind of how we figure out our pathway to success. Yeah, so a lot to think about. A little bit of what's going on with me. I just submitted my job references for my new job. Hopefully those come through and I'll have the job. I'm not particularly satisfied with the environment at home, and I don't generally want to be in this environment anymore. I mean, it's not like a bad environment, but it's not tailored to the person I want to become. And so I'm start looking at more independence and things like that. But I can't go to university because I didn't pass high school, and I can't do a lot of other stuff. So if this job comes through and I can do it for a couple of weeks and I enjoy it, and not really enjoy it, but I can, like as I said, with choosing the problems, if I'm willing to accept the problems the job comes with, then yes, I will try to become more independent. And again, the independence will come before the travels, so it would be more beneficial, technically speaking, financially, to stay in my parents' house while I save up my money for traveling. But if I can find some friend to flat with or something, it would be much more ideal for me, just because my environment can be improved. And yeah, that's mainly what's been going on. Just trying to get a job, mainly. Money, that's usually the problem, but yeah, that's pretty much it. The date is 17th of November 2025. I've currently got 2 more Notes app deep kind of stuff like this on the back burner, which I will upload soon, document them soon. And I kind of want to do more stuff, maybe a little bit in the kind of a different environment, maybe change up where I film, maybe change up a little bit of what I talk about. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's the end of the video.